What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the great, good, and not so good decks recently released on Kickstarter. Steve, I gotta say, this week was an interesting one, man. At first glance, it seemed like there was a lot of need help decks, but I think we got a pretty even mix so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think, each one of them needed their own thing to kind of take it to the next level.
Absolutely.
But, kind of even across the board, I think.
Absolutely, man. That's one of the great things about it, too. Even a great deck sometimes needs a little bit of help. But I think that all of the campaigns we saw this week, especially on the artwork side, have some really great potential, which I'm really excited to check out. Ready to do this?
Do it.
Let's do it, man. So I'm really excited for this week's first great campaign, man. This is actually from a creator we both know and love, and this is actually his first crack at Kickstarter, though this is far from his first deck. This is going to be a good one, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was really looking forward to this deck, and I'm excited that it's here finally.
Absolutely. We got some sneak peeks at the art a while back, and it absolutely crushed. So I'm really excited to see it on the platform now, really driving home on Kickstarter. So let's dive into this week's first great campaign with the Dark Continent playing cards from GAKONDO. So I have to say, GAKONDO has brought some great decks to the forefront in the past, and this is no exception. Really excited to see this thing come to Kickstarter. This is GAKONDO's first attempt at a Kickstarter, and I have to say, they put together a really informative campaign. I think there are a couple things that, as a first-time creator, they could have tweaked a little bit better, but I think they did a really great job and deserve that great rating there.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure.
So diving right into the campaign here, we see there's a nice little history around the idea of the deck of cards, the theme obviously being Africa and African culture. So we dive into the history and the Dark Continent right here, getting into that story. We see off the bat some really great imagery of the deck. You see the tuck back design there, which I honestly just can't get enough of that black and gold color scheme they went with.
Yeah, black and gold's always a hit.
It really is. And they also just have some great artwork here. Looking through, you can see kind of the breakdown of all of the cards, going into a little bit of the history of each and every one of the court cards. One of the things that stands out to me, and again, I think as a first-time creator, it's always tough because you want to put as much information as possible. To me, I actually would have liked to know a little bit more about the card production itself, so the features section, bringing it up to the top, before you get into all the nitty-gritty details, because a lot of times what ends up happening is people want to hit that first section and then be off onto something else or hit the back button. So a lot of times it's really important to make sure that you're getting the pertinent details right up top.
Yeah, and for these, these kind of layouts with the four cards, whether it's the Jack, the Ace, the King, it would have been cooler to see all four images of the cards, because you're talking about each individual card, but yet I can only see the top one.
And then, well, and now we get into it here. There's kind of a redundant imagery. It almost would have made sense to take some of this imagery and bring it up to the top. A lot of times you have these little markers here, Ace of Spades, Ace of Hearts, which actually should be Ace of Diamonds there, Ace of Clubs, like people know what the cards are. From that point of view, this cool side marker with like this little layout of the four cards side by side would have been really dope there.
Yeah. Definitely just enlarging them, just because that artwork is so bomb.
Yeah, it really is. And then we see actually a second edition here. So the one thing I did mention earlier is I thought the features coming up to the top would be a lot more helpful for the campaign. The other aspect to that as well is I think being right under this new header for Explorer Edition, I now am curious whether or not these features apply just to this edition or to all of the decks. So we see metallic ink here. We see printed by Cardamundi on their B9 Slimline, True Linen stock, tucks by Boshario and Newton. I'm sure I said that incorrectly, but that's perfectly fine. And then you see the stamp. So to me, this information up top would have been a little more valuable, because it then would have, to me, meant that it was about all of the decks. If it, in fact, is not about all of the decks, you want to put a feature section for each deck, since you do have multiple editions here. We get into the fulfillment partners there, so awesome to see that right on the main page. Get into some fun little add-ons here, which for the most part seem to be standard versions of the decks themselves. One thing to consider, especially with a very custom artwork deck, throw up some uncuts. It may be worthwhile there. A lot of times, unless you have a lot of drive, you can end up holding on to some uncuts, so it's not necessarily an absolute must, but it doesn't hurt to diversify your add-ons a little bit there.
Yeah, the cool thing about Cardamundi is you're not kind of limited. You don't have to buy 25.
Yeah,
like
and you're paying deck price for an uncut, whereas some producers charge you, around deck price, maybe a little bit more, but you have a minimum order quantity, which can end up making it not as worthwhile. And then we have the stretch goals here. The other thing I would say with the stretch goals is extrapolate out on that. So gilding applied to the Explorer Edition, what color gilding is going to go on that? Some of these questions here, and maybe even make some renders to really sell those stretch goals. It's always good to keep in mind, especially as a first-time Kickstarter creator, that the purpose of stretch goals is to drive funding beyond your goal. So you want to put things out there that people can visually see and get excited about, because that's going to make them want to get that to the next level there. Whether it's through increasing their own pledge or sharing the campaign with friends in order to get more backers to the campaign. And then ultimately, too, I love the meet the team idea. I wish there was more information, though, especially Max. I know all of this great stuff about you. I think everyone out there would love to know it as well. And with KiCA, which I apologize if I mispronounced your name there, I think it would be great to know more about you as well. And I think it would be really helpful to have that in the meet the team section, even if it was just a little bit of a blurb. And another big one there, a link to social media, because then people can go and follow you and get to know more information about you and even reach out to you.
Yeah. We're looking at price-wise.
Price-wise, we are looking at States $17 shipped. That seem right? Looks like free shipping across the board.
Interesting.
Very cool. Very nice.
Oh, nice.
You can't go wrong with that. That's really that's a great deal. I mean, $17 for a fully custom deck with metallic ink on it is an absolute steal. And honestly, I'm excited to see how this campaign goes, because I think it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. Good luck.
Good luck. But before we jump into this week's first good campaign, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell.
And for this week's first good campaign, we have the Maine's Reverb playing cards. Classic stock, fully custom, printed by USPCC. I love the simple but informative nature of that subtitle there. You know, we've been leaning a little bit more recently towards the idea of using a subtitle for more SEO purposes, but when you want to hit those bullet points real quick and you don't necessarily have a high SEO theme for your deck, things like Norse or Egyptian or, you know, gods of any sort, Roman gods, those kind of things really help with the search capability. But in a situation where you have more of an abstract deck like this one, feel free to go wild with those subtitles.
Yeah.
So this is actually Andrew's second deck, but his first time created on Kickstarter, which I think is awesome to see. The really interesting thing about this campaign is the deck style is completely different from what we've seen with his other deck, which I think was very much more square, really cool looking deck for cardistry without a question. Diving into the campaign, the one thing I will say too is, while we do see a story here and a little bit of a background, the story itself, like, I would take this section here where it talks about the design of the deck and make that first and foremost, followed by the little bit of an about you section maybe towards the bottom. You get into some of the little details here about taking, you know, feedback from customers, and that's all well and good, but that kind of, to me, is a follow-up point to the initial story. So I would say some of this text probably needs to be swapped around a little bit. Additionally, these, like, the colored hands, like, are like so eye-catching. It's so interesting to see, like, the red hands on that bright yellow background. Such a great use of contrast to really draw your eye to the images there and help prevent the one thing we always talk about, which is like the infinite scrolling nature of a cell phone or a mobile device. These bright pops of color really help stop people and be like, oh, what was that? But again, though, the one thing I would say too is you have so much text up top, interweave it between the images just to prevent that scrollability there. Really make it a more kind of flowing campaign. The other aspect I notice about it in this such small font here is it's going to be printed by USPCC, so you have the printer there. You know, taking a look at the risks, we can see that you have fulfillment as well. I'm a firm believer that it's not a risk for fulfillment. You want to put who's going to be fulfilling, even if it's yourself, in the main part of the campaign, because risks are things like, while we're going to be self-fulfilling, there have been delays or price increases in the postal service, and so this may have slight delays in delivery. That's a risk itself. A challenge itself as well could be, you know, trying to find out who's going to be doing your fulfillment. But the fulfillment itself is just a factual statement that I think goes to the sales pitch of the campaign, so making sure it's in that main section is really important. The other thing that I think drives this from great to good is really the fact that, like, there's a lot of text, there's a lot of images, but it doesn't really have a flow to it. It doesn't have necessarily a feel to it. It's very much like, okay, I hit the end of it, and now it's anticlimactic, you know? A lot of selling things is emotion, so building that emotion throughout the campaign is absolutely crucial here. I think building out a little more of the information around this, making it a little more visual other than the contrast in the images, which I think is great, will really help drive this to a great campaign.
Yeah.
And price point wise, we're looking at
price?
Yeah, we're looking at $15 shipped. Dude, this is the week of great deck prices so far. I gotta say,
right?
2 awesome decks, especially 2 visually appealing decks for under 20 bucks. Like that's a steal. Now, good luck, Andrew. Definitely a fun-looking deck, man. The one thing I will say, too, and this is a personal preference to me more than anything, though I have heard this echoed within the community, being a cardistry deck, it's easy to get away from the idea of people quartz, people, you know, face cards. If for whatever reason this does not fund and artwork is a piece of the feedback, definitely consider using, like, semi-standard or more customized but people-oriented court cards instead of just the mirrored images or mirrored items, because a lot of times that actually can stop someone from backing it who's more in that cardistry / collector vein. So something to keep in mind as well.
Hey, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. And for this week's First Needs Help campaign, we have the Lockwood playing cards. So I have to say, this is actually a really interesting campaign, and the deck itself has a great vibe to it. It's got a time theme to it. They talk about the fact that it's going to be printed by... Well, so this is an interesting thing. So it's not going to be printed by USPCC. And this is where the confusion comes in, and part of why this is a Needs Help campaign. They talk about using the standard USPCC faces, but they don't actually mention who's going to be printing. They talk about things like M32 master quality stock with black core linen air finish, which historically has been very much MPC-oriented language, but then they also talk about being printed in Germany. So MPC doesn't print in Germany as far as I'm aware, unless they're using the German arm of MPC, but while that could be the case, they're still going to be printed in China, where 99% of MPC's production happens. So it would be very good in this, first and foremost, to mention who the printer is going to be. Getting a little bit into it, there's a nice little story around the idea of the creators, but I really want to know more about the deck itself. Why the customizations? Why the back design? What are you really into? You know, you mentioned that you're 2 young sellers and creators of design deck of cards. Other thing I'll say there is just make sure you have a second set of eyes or a third set of eyes on it to make sure that the wording and the language makes sense, especially if it's not your first language that you're putting this campaign out in. Things like that, especially so early in the campaign, can turn someone off to the point that they may not even reach beyond this part of your campaign, which is a shame. So
yeah, and those first 3 images, bring those up a lot closer, because I can't see what any of those are.
They're very small for what they are, and they could have been full-size images themselves and split up throughout the text. The other thing I'll say with this one, too, is it talks about shipping. I will say that while they don't mention who's going to be fulfilling, which is another thing they need to touch on, the idea that €6 flat fee for shipping no matter how many decks you order very well could bite you. That's a problem unless you're funding it in the goal, which if we go take a look here, a goal of 6,600, they're probably not accounting for. If someone goes and buys a brick of cards, it's going to cost you more than €6 to ship internationally. That is a very big point to consider. It could cost you $20. Like,
that's a lot of money.
It could basically put you in the negative for the entire order. So it's definitely something to consider there, is while it's good to either go free shipping because you factored into the goal and you've really done the calculations on it, or variable rate shipping. I would never encourage flat rate shipping no matter the order size, because that can definitely backfire. What happens if someone comes and buys 3 bricks? You know, you're now spending all of your profit plus some money out of your pocket just to ship those to the purchaser. And it's all well and good. You're thinking in your head, that's great, I sold 3 bricks. But you don't want to sell 3 bricks to lose money.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I think, you know, there's a lot of good things here. They touched on their social media, which I think is great. I highly encourage for all creators. But you want to make sure that you're really creating a story around who you are, what the meaning behind this deck is. Ultimately, too, you can see that this stopwatch image, this deck image here, and one of the king images, I believe, are the same from the top here. So we have the back design image. So take a lot more pictures, get a lot more visibility into the deck. You have a really cool idea with this King of Hearts being customized. What else is customized in the deck? I can also see a little bit of customization on one of the queens. Because of that, I want to see the entire deck. What does it all look like? Really get into that nitty-gritty detail here, because as a first-time creator, people want to know that you put as much thought and effort into this as possible.
Yeah, I actually like the back design. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I think the other aspect of this, too, is as a first-time creator, this Risks and Challenges is not only too short, but it's also somewhat misleading. Backing our project takes almost no risk. The only risk is that we don't reach enough money to produce our deck. Inherently false. You have the idea of shipping internationally, which could be lost in the mail. You have the idea of it costing you more, and then what do you do to actually meet the goals you're looking? What happens if, you know, a print run doesn't come out correctly, or there's delays in your production? There are so many aspects to it that it doesn't help to downplay risks. Upplay the risks so that you're overly cautious and people are aware of everything, so that if all of a sudden one day it's like, hey, you know, XYZ turned out to be this color instead of that color, you already covered it in your Risks and Challenges, and no one can, I mean, people may, you know, complain about it, but you can say, hey, listen, we told you this was a possibility, and you're kind of covering your bases there. You're not only being transparent with your backers, but you're also kind of protecting yourself as well and your reputation as a creator. So something to consider there. Highly recommend taking a look at some great Risks and Challenges that we see on some multiple creators, and just take a note from that.
Before you go, check that, go back in there for a sec.
Yep.
If you look, it says the only risk that we don't reach enough money to produce our deck. If that happens, you'll be refunded by Kickstarter. If you don't reach your funding goal,
yeah, no money
they
is
don't
taken.
take the money
Yeah,
out.
so
you don't have to ask them within 7 days of your campaign.
So, and that's the other thing to consider, is really make sure you understand the nuances of how the platform you're trying to use are. The other thing I'll go back to here about the fact that €6 international shipping isn't a terrible deal, but on one deck, it really puts your price point higher than I would expect. I'm also wondering if something is going on here with Kickstarter
Something's
itself.
going on with shipping, dude.
Yeah, it must be, and that's really interesting. So ignore previous shipping things that didn't mention free shipping. We're now curious if there's a shipping issue on this, so we'll put a little note on the bottom there as well. But it looks like shipping may be problematic.
The other campaigns had shipping before.
Yeah, so it very well could be some sort of issue related to the internet outages that are going on today. But with that in mind, €6 on top of €14, you're looking at €20 euros for the deck. So not cheap for what it is. For a very standard deck, a $17 base price point is way too high. This should be a $20 deck, out the door shipped, max end, with a more comfortable work spot around $17 for the deck, because it really does have that kind of Magician's Workers feel to it.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And for another great campaign this week, we have the Style is the Answer Smooth playing cards. This is a really interesting one. I'm curious whether or not the smooth aspect of it talks about the finish on the cards, or just like smooth in the sense of like smooth style. The funny thing about that is, if it's talking about style, it's almost a detractor for people who don't like smooth playing cards. So always important to be aware of the terminology within the community you're trying to build the product for, in case it may have that second nuanced meaning. Really interesting campaign here. I think Nicholas did a great job. I actually really like the back design to it with the eyes. Kind of has a Sears Magis vibe to it a little bit, but really unique colors, really kind of a mellow, minimalist in those colors. Very custom. See, this is all super interesting here. So we have Travis Barker, Lucy Liu, Samuel O'Reilly. So
interesting.
Yeah, random people throughout the deck. So this is the other thing to me that kind of gets lost a little bit, because if I'm taking a look through it, I don't get a ton of information related to why this is the theme of the deck. And I think that's a big thing for the story here, is telling people what's important about this deck. So while this is a great campaign from the point of view that it talks about who's going to be printing and who's going to be fulfilling, there are some really big things about that story that would help drive more business to this deck. No question about it. Interesting. Oh, good luck. And for another good campaign this week, we have the Bicycle Limited Edition Still Life Playing Cards. So this is from collectibleplayingcards.com, and not to get too detailed into it, but they're still using the same template that they've been using for a very long time at this point. One thing I will point out is the goal on this deck is quite low, $2,500. Really doesn't cover shipping or print production on this if you're doing a 1,000 print run, but we do usually assume with collectibleplayingcards.com that more often than not, they're subsidizing the funding themselves to some extent. While that's not a bad thing, it is important for first-time creators and repeat creators to realize that $2,500 is not a realistic funding goal if you're not planning on putting money in yourself. So definitely something to keep in mind there. The other thing with these campaigns is, while it mentions who's going to be printing, we can assume collectibleplayingcards.com is going to be fulfilling. there's just not much to the campaign itself. Yes, it's very minimalist. Yes, the images show the cards themselves, but it just doesn't really try to sell anybody on the deck. You either love it or hate it, and if you can't tell from this first image, you're not going to figure that out from the campaign itself. To me, that's one of the things where I think Kickstarter has the capability to touch people emotionally and convince them to back a deck that they may not normally back and take a chance on something. You know, we can see that based on the historical kind of aspects of the collectible playing cards.com campaigns. Over time, they haven't plateaued, they haven't grown, they've kind of declined a little bit because they're still using this 2013 campaign template, which is really important to realize that with Kickstarter, you have to keep evolving your template to make it as relevant as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bicycle deck. There's a big following with bicycle decks, and, you know, I would think that would be more than 60 backers.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a bummer because I think the deck has a lot of potential, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it if there was more to the campaign itself. So, Mike, definitely something to keep in mind there, but yeah, good luck. And for another good campaign this week, we have the Stoopers playing cards on the theme of sea glass colors. I would rework the title a little bit on this one. It's actually a really interesting campaign. They talk about printing and fulfillment, which I think is great, and this is going to be printed by INVZI UK. INVZI, people love it or hate it. You know, if you're really looking for just a playable deck, they make a great deck. If you're looking for something that's going to be usable all the time, this isn't going to clump out of the box. It needs a lot of break-in periods, so something to keep in mind, but I actually do like the INVZI stock. If you're into the theme of sea glass, this is actually a really fun deck. I can remember being a kid and going to the shore and finding sea glass in the sand and always loving it. Well, I have to say this is actually a really great first-time attempt for a first-time playing card creator. You can see that Paula has previous campaigns under her belt as well, and I think she's bringing a lot of that Kickstarter aspect to the playing card campaign here, which can be a positive and sometimes a negative. The one thing that stands out to me here is this is actually a really long campaign, but a lot of it could actually be consolidated, making the images a little bit smaller, having a little bit of text between the images so there's a little better flow to it, and also just making sure to really add some visuals to the idea of add-ons and to stretch goals, even if you're going to have stretch goals on the campaign.
Yeah, that reminds me of Uno.
Yeah.
All the bright colors. And
definitely a very, very colorful deck, which is cool. Yeah. The other thing about this one, too, and I haven't seen it yet, I'd love to see what the back design is. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it either.
So always something to consider there. Make sure to include an image of your back design, because a lot of times for collectors, that's going to be one of the biggest determining factors on your deck. So good luck on this one, Paula. Interested to see what else you bring to the community as well. And for another Needs Help campaign this week, we have the Brew deck. This is actually a really cool concept deck. The artwork on this thing is beautiful. To me, the back design's a little bit minimal, but there's a lot of potential behind this, and I'm actually really excited to see this campaign because I think it really does have a lot of artistic potential. This almost reminds me of something that, like, Art of Play would get behind, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. It kind of resembles the Tempo deck.
Yeah.
You know, not the deck itself, but just
the style of the artwork. Yeah, very outside the lines and very kind of like rough but intentionally rough style to it. The big things on this one are who's going to be printing, who's going to be fulfilling, and just really telling the story. I think they did a good job putting together some of the aspects of it. There's text between the images, which I think is great. It breaks up the flow a little bit, makes it a little more stop and go so people read, but also putting in those images for stretch goals, really make it enticing, are super important there. And also just, like I said, touching on printer and fulfillment, because this deck has a lot of potential, and I think people would be really interested to see this thing on Cardamundi or USPCC stock.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And for a fun little playing card related campaign this week, we have the 2022 Enchanting Playing Cards wall calendar from Ron. Our buddy Ron here, this is his second year putting out a calendar, and he's done an amazing job. All of the artwork here is done by To Be Frank with Cards. Frank is an amazing photographer. Ron is an awesome member of the playing card community, and I love the fact that they came together to create the 2021 calendar, which did great, and then now the subsequent 2022 calendar. So anyone who's a playing card enthusiast out there, or anyone who's looking for a good gift for a playing card enthusiast, I would definitely say jump on board with this calendar, because who doesn't love a good calendar, man? I know Steve's all about the phone calendar, but I am a purist, and I truly believe that a wall calendar is where it's at. You get a little bit of artwork, you get a little bit of information, but I'd love to see a stretch goal on this thing be like a desk calendar or like a day planner.
Yeah, no, it'd be cool.
Good luck on this one, guys. Absolutely excited to see you bringing this for a new year. Really excited to see this fund when it does, and I can't wait to see how it all turns out.
Good luck.
Good luck. So, Steve, I gotta say, it's been a really interesting week. A lot of fun decks, some great artwork out there. What are you backing, man?
I think I am backing GAKONDO.
Nice.
And I think that's it.
All right, man.
I think I'd back Lockwood if it had a little bit of work done in there.
Yeah, a little bit of tweaks, a little bit of information on it. I'd be curious to see who's going to print on it, because it definitely has that magic usable deck vibe, but you want to know who's going to be on it. If that's USPCC, I think that's a home run right there.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's on Legends or NPC, I mean, it's a cool deck for magicians.
Yeah.
You know? What about you?
I definitely am on board with Dark Continent. Absolutely love the deck. And honestly, looking at the artwork again, even though it's a needs help campaign, I really like the style of the brew deck. I just want to see more about it. I think that would be my on the fence back this week, because I think that there's a ton of potential there. The artwork style is really cool. I think the back design maybe needs a little bit more fill to clear out some of the blank space there, but I'd be really curious who's going to be printing and who's going to be fulfilling, because those are things that for me as a collector I'm curious about. Is it going to be metallic ink like the image kind of showed it was? Who's going to be doing that metallic ink? Could it potentially be foil? Is it a cheap printer who's going to be doing foil, or someone like Legends who could do a really nice foil job? So there's a lot of questions there in my mind as to what the deck is going to be, but I think Dark Continent, no questions asked, and then the brew deck is 50-50 there.
Nice.
Yeah. I gotta say, though, I really think it was an interesting week because so many of the decks had so much potential to them. They just needed little tweaks here and there. I think really a big one, too, this week is just getting out that marketing push across all these decks. There were several decks there that had multiple-time creators who have done decks in the past, and we hadn't seen anything about it on social media. And I think that's a key aspect, is building up that anticipation pre-launch to make sure that you're getting people excited about your deck.
Yeah, I think people get excited and they want to push it out before the holidays, and it's sometimes it's better to just wait until after the new year.
Yeah, just gotta plan ahead. That's what it comes down to. Always think about those things. And honestly, Kickstarter is always a learning experience, and so if you don't succeed the first time with any creator, I always love to reiterate, make sure that you go back to the drawing board and figure it out, because 99% of these decks have potential. It just maybe hasn't been unearthed yet. So really don't give up on your dream of creating a deck. Go back to the drawing board and figure out what you need to do to make it pop and make it something that people are going to want to buy.
Yeah.
So now that you know what we're backing this week, why don't you drop a comment down below and let us know what you plan on backing this week. Dude, ready for the fun part?
I'm always ready for the fun part.
This is going to be an exciting week. I don't think there's any light bulbs in the mix this week. I don't think there's any...
Is there any CNC
There are no CNC machines or 3D printers. We went outside the box this week, found some really interesting stuff, and I'm really excited to see what we got, dude.
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right. So, first up for my fun campaign this week, we have the Thumby, the tiny playable keychain. I'll tell you right now, the name... I could go either way on that one, but the idea behind this is super cool. It is a extremely tiny, functional, retro gaming system, which obviously I think anyone out there knows this looks like the original Game Boy, which I still have my original Game Boy somewhere in my house. That thing is like a relic at this point. I love it. Every once in a while, I'll throw some fresh batteries in and turn it on, play a little Tetris, and I'm good to go. But imagine having this dude on your keychain and actually being able to play it.
No.
Like, look at that. Tetris. I don't even know what you got on here. You got Tetris. It looks like some sort of asteroid game. Up there we go.
That's
Tiny
asteroid,
Blocks, aka Tetris. Space Debris, aka Asteroid.
Space Invaders.
A snake game. Delver, a dungeon adventure game, and Sora Run. Dude, yeah, so they got some, classic games on this thing. I can only imagine how tough it must be to actually, play it. But the cool thing about this, too, is it's actually fully customizable. So if you're a programmer or want to go learn a little bit about the MicroPython programming language, you can create your own games for this thing and load them in.
Dude, I just can't get over that screen. I'm old as hell. I won't be able
Oh my
to see
god, yeah, no,
screen.
this is made for people with impeccable eyesight or magnifying glasses, one of the two. But
That's how big is that? How big is that screen?
probably the size of smaller than your thumbnail would be my guess.
So look at it. It looks like it. No, it's smaller than
That's
a
what I said,
thumbnail.
smaller
Look.
than a thumbnail. It's probably the size of your pinky fingernail.
You're like this.
Yeah. Dude, but this is such a cool concept. The fact that they have like a little bee play, that's so good. Like, I have to say, the one thing that caught me with this campaign is it's just really cleverly put together. But this is such like a fun little thing. I see people spend so much money on like keychains that don't do anything. But you could literally get this thing for 24 bucks shipped. And it's such like a conversation piece.
I think that's why it's doing so well. I don't think it's doing well because people are psyched to play on it. They're psyched to get some because miniature stuff is popular.
Yeah. Look at this.
Like altogether, just miniature
mini
stuff,
arcades, you know? Cabinets. I mean, this is really cool. And here's the thing. It's 100% a gimmick. But I love that aspect of it because you're going to put it on your keychain. You're going to play it every once in a while. You're going to forget about it. One day you're going to be bored on the subway or something. You're going to pull it out and play with it a little bit. People are going to be like, what the hell is this guy doing? But I think that's the fun part of it. Is it really has this whole kind of like fun vibe to it. And again, 24 bucks for something that's just this fun and this like niche is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be fun to get and throw it in a stocking for your kids. Dude,
absolutely. Christmas is coming up.
Joke.
Yeah, Christmas. They're not even going to know what it is. They're going to be like, what is this? You'd be like, oh, it's a Game Boy. They're going to be like, how's it so tiny? Oh, my God. But I'm excited to see this one. I think it looks really cool. And dude, 2,300 backers on it. Already raised 100 grand at $24 a piece. That's a solid raise right there. So,
yeah, for sure.
Good luck to Ken and the Thumby crew. So,
Ken Burns.
Next up for another fun campaign this week, we have the Irontide Adventure Short with Waterproof Pocket. I like travel clothes. I don't know why. It's always intriguing to me, especially like, you ever see like pockets or like shorts with like 22 pockets, but that don't look like they have any pockets in them? Stuff like that always throws me off, man, because it's always just like so intriguing. It's like a puzzle to find where all the pockets in the pants are, you know? So this to me seems like a really interesting one. I saw it and I was like, all right, you know what? You can't go wrong with a solid pair of shorts that are not only waterproof or swimmable basically, but with a waterproof pocket. So you're out and someone's like, oh, let's go swimming. You don't have a bathing suit. You throw your cell phone in the waterproof pocket and you jump in. It's no big deal. Ideally, you leave your phone on the table, but for whatever reason, if you can't, you got a waterproof pocket there. I like the idea of it.
Yeah, you're at the beach.
Exactly, dude. I like the idea of it because ultimately, travel clothing's tough. You want stuff that's going to be durable. You want stuff that's not going to like stink after wearing it once, because sometimes you're traveling light and you wear shorts 2-3 days over the course of a week. You know, you want to make sure that you're really finding good stuff, and it actually is tough to find nice travel wear. The one thing that stands out to me is like is I'm not a big fan of cargo pockets, but again, for utility purposes, I'm okay with it in this scenario. And like, the colors are fresh, the cut looks good. Can't go wrong there, dude. Not cheap, but again, clothes aren't cheap. So
yeah, I mean, what are they coming?
We're looking at 97 bucks.
That's about average. Here's my thing. I feel weird going in the water with dress pants. They're like dress shorts.
Yeah, but they kind of also look a little bit like bathing suit material. So like, yeah, if you're not this dude, you're not this dude here with his shirt tucked in, I think they look a little more, you know, bathing suit. So
yeah, they're kind of, I feel like I don't know. They're a little dressy. But they're cool.
I mean, that's perfectly fine. I don't think I've seen you out of a t-shirt or a hoodie, so I wouldn't expect you to be like swimming in a chino bathing suit, but dude, but definitely a fun pair of shorts there. And for anyone who's looking for good travel wear, a little bit late in the season for it since it's almost, you know, fall here at this point, but never hurts to pick up a good pair of shorts.
Yeah, the logo on the leg helps.
Yeah.
It helps a little bit. Kind of takes it away from.
Yeah, it makes it look more bathing suity than dress pant. Yeah, I can get on board with that. But dude, I definitely dig it. Yeah. So good luck to Irontide and Felicia Gunnarsson here.
Nice.
And so for Steve's first fun campaign this week, we have the INVZI MagHub, the world's first pop-up SSD USB-C hub. Transform your MacBook into a true workstation.
So, dude, here's the thing. All the new Macs don't have any connectors, right? So you have to buy a hub. You have to buy a station to put it on. This is
actually
awesome.
Looks pretty
dope. It has
dope.
everything. Comes with everything. It also has a little slot. If you look on the side, if you go up a little bit and you look, that little pop-up SSD enclosure, you can throw a nice little SSD drive in there and
interesting.
Get added space. Dude, it's pretty dope.
It's definitely clever looking, and it fits the motif, which I think is always a big one with Apple products. I personally am not an Apple product person, but, and this is the thing that gets me about it too, 149 bucks, that's actually reasonable for an Apple accessory, but at the same time, they probably make something like this for a Windows PC that's like $35.
Yeah, I mean, you know, who knows how long it'll work for. But, I mean, it is a little expensive. You know, this is, what, 44% off, so it's going to retail for $250.
Yeah, that's pricey.
It's kind of jumping up there for sure. But, yeah, I mean, it's sleek. Looks like an Apple, which, you know, might cost a little bit more to manufacture. But it has everything, which supposedly Apple is going to be adding all the connectors back. So we don't have to get these. But in the meantime, for all the systems that don't, the current systems, this is a really cool option.
I wonder how it impacts the cooling, too. That's one of my biggest things.
Well, I mean, the good thing about a Mac is, you know, they're pretty good. It does have a little bit of elevation.
Yeah, so you get some airflow under, yeah.
Is key. Because they don't have those vents.
Look at that.
And
they even touch on it. So very minimal raise, about a 4 degree Celsius raise. So not too bad.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
I'm a big fan. 506 batches.
I'm not surprised. This is right up your alley with the MacBook fanboy style there, Sal.
Well, I mean, I have a little bit of a kind of like a bridge underneath mine just to kind of let some cool air go underneath there, and I have hubs obviously connected to everything. But this is just a lot.
It looks good. Well, hey, good luck to INVZI. INVZI. I'm just saying it's INVZI because it makes a lot more sense. Hopefully that's what it is, but if not, you missed the mark.
It makes way more sense that way.
But good luck, and for another fun campaign this week, we have the KiCA JetFan cordless high-speed hair dryer, air pump, and blower. So when I first opened this, I'm sitting here like, why would Steve want this? And then I forgot that Steve has crazy long hair, and this makes perfect sense.
But dude, check out the colors. Rider back blue and rider back red.
Nice. I actually like the green. I'm not going to lie. I'd probably go for the matte black, but the green's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're cool. They're pretty small, too. Small little phone.
Not bad, man.
I mean, the video, these videos crack me up.
I like that they're, like, using it to clean a keyboard, but then, like, using it to dry your hair. Like, I guess this is just a multi-purpose blower that could be used as one or the other, which is clever. Like, why limit yourself? But also super
Yeah, I mean, it has
strange.
connectors where you can, like, pump up tires and
things
like that. It's not bad either. It's like, what, 70 bucks?
$70 early bird. Get a family pack. Yeah, if it looks like if you want two, they're a $115, so you save a good amount of money on two. But definitely interesting, man. Yeah. Not what I was expecting for your fun campaigns this week, Steve. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan person, but I know a lot of people, you know, when they're sitting at their desk at work, they like to have little fans. So.
Yeah, that is too funny. Honestly, that's what gets it right there. It's almost like meme quality humor right there. They're just like, oh, we got you, no worries. But absolutely love it, man. Dude, these have been some really interesting fun campaigns this week. I definitely think we went outside of the normal bounds a little bit there, trying to find some fun pocket-sized stuff, some MacBook-related stuff, whatever was under the sun. But as always, we always love to hear what everyone out there watching likes to back this week, what caught your eye, what you're excited to get in the mail, and what you're looking forward to in the future. So as always, make sure to drop a comment right down below. Let us know what you plan on backing this week, whether it's playing cards, portable hair dryers, MacBook accessories, thumb size, Game Boys, or whatever else it could possibly be. And as always, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
See you later.